In week one against the Dolphins, New England Patriots defensive back Joejuan Williams finally carving out a role for himself. I'm Sarah Goodwill here with Evan Lazar. We knew that quarterback, that position was a logjam, right? And so there's been conversations about moving Joejuan Williams to a safety role in week one against the Dolphins. What did you think about how the Patriots utilized him?
Well, I think what was interesting about it, Sierra, is that Bill Belichick said this morning that Mike Gesicki, the tight end for Miami, is basically just a big receiver. He doesn't view him as a traditional inline tight end. So I think what he was saying was that, with Joejuan Williams, when it comes to guys like a Gesicki or like a Zach Ertz maybe, or a Travis Kelce, someone that the Patriots are going to see, those guys are really just wide receivers in a tight end's body. And I think what Belichick is saying is that a guy like Joejuan Williams at 6'4", with his size and his coverage abilities is really a perfect matchup for that type of tight end that we see around the NFL so often. And what we saw yesterday was tight coverage on a couple different third down plays. The first one, he broke up himself, flexed out with Gesicki on the outside, and he made a nice play on the ball. The second one was J.C. Jackson's interception that clinched the game at the end. Joejuan Williams had great coverage up the seam on Gesicki, really smothered him and allowed Jackson to get in there to make the interception. So he had a big step forward, I thought, for Joejuan Williams, and they're finally sort of understanding that if they can use him as a matchup sort of player, where if it's a big body tight end like Gesicki or it's a big bodied receiver like maybe DK Metcalf next week, you can sort of mix and match with Joejuan Williams like that and be able to find him matchups, so he's not going up against a burner every single week and somebody that he's not going to be able to fare well against.
And although there's plenty of talent and body still in this secondary, there were still questions about replacing Patrick Chung and his significant role. How did you think that Adrian Phillips, Terrence Brooks, those guys stepped up against the Dolphins to fill that void?
It was a pretty great debut for Adrian Phillips. He had maybe the best game of any Patriots defender. He had 9 tackles, led the team in that regard, had the interception obviously too. And I think what you see with the Patriots secondary is that when they put those safeties at linebacker spots, that back seven is incredibly good in coverage because they now have a lot of speed, a lot of instincts, a lot of great coverage players there in that back seven because they're not playing 255-pound linebackers, 15 yards off the ball. So I think that's really what you saw yesterday with Phillips, with Brooks, and essentially the best thing that they need out of those guys, along with the coverage. You're going to get the coverage, right? They're going to be good in that area. Can they hold up against the run, playing guys that are 225 pounds in the box? So far against Miami, who doesn't have exactly the most potent rushing attack, but we'll see how it looks against Seattle. That's going to be a much different test. But so far, so good, because Brooks and Phillips both made some great plays behind the line of scrimmage on the running backs, really keying the run just like a linebacker would and jumping in the backfield and making plays. So I think at the end of the day, if they can hold up at least well enough against the run where they're not getting gashed playing those types of packages, they're going to be really tough to beat in terms of coverage and passing the ball down the field, because they have essentially 7 defensive backs on the field at once, with those guys playing linebacker in those underneath zones, the low hole, the deep hole in cover 2, things like that. Now putting a safety in that spot instead of putting, let's say, Jawan Bentley there, it's just a big difference, and I think that's what we saw yesterday.
Well, for all of our Patriots coverage, you can find it on our website at clnsmedia.com, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Patriots Press Pass.